My family disowned me for refusing to marry my rich cousin. Now he's in jail, and I'm pregnant with my jobless fiancé's baby. I'm 26 years old, and I've been with my fiancé, Lance, who's 27, for 5 years now. Just to give you a little background, my family is the kind that's obsessed with tradition and, honestly, money. My mom, who's 52, has never hidden what she values most: wealth and social status. My dad, 55, is more relaxed on the surface, but he usually goes along with whatever she says. I've got a younger sister, Rita, who's 24 and has always been treated like royalty. She's never had a job, never needed to. Our parents shower her with everything, and she soaks it all up without a second thought. Then there's my cousin Kyle, 27, my mom's absolute favorite. He's rich, owns multiple properties, and runs his own business empire. Kyle and I grew up side by side, and while I'd never seen him as anything more than a cousin, my mom started planting the idea of me marrying him back when we were teenagers. To her, Kyle is the dream husband, successful, flashy, and a boost to the family name. But I've never wanted to marry for money. I'm in love with Lance, truly, deeply, and that's what matters to me. Lance and I had been planning our wedding for months. We had everything lined up: the venue, my dress, the honeymoon. We were doing it on a budget, nothing extravagant, but it was going to be perfect for us. My mom, of course, wanted to inject her usual over-the-top taste into it, insisting on adding lavish touches. I pushed back hard because I didn't want her money or influence to take over what was meant to be a celebration of our love. Tension was already simmering. To my mom, weddings are supposed to be massive, glittering spectacles that impress her friends. But for me, it was all about being surrounded by the people we love most and starting our life together in a meaningful way. Then came the curveball. Just 1 week before the wedding, Lance came home looking completely drained. His company had gone through brutal layoffs, and his whole department was let go. He told me with this defeated look in his eyes, like he was ashamed of himself. He kept saying he was sorry, like he'd ruined everything. But I wasn't angry, I was heartbroken for him. I knew how much that job meant to him. The wedding could wait. We agreed to postpone everything until he found something new. Lance wanted to bounce back fast, but I told him it didn't matter how long it took. I love him, and I believe we can get through anything together. My family, on the other hand, took it terribly. When I told my mom what had happened and that we were postponing the wedding, she exploded. She immediately jumped to the conclusion that this proved Lance wasn't good enough for me. And then she hit me with something I never saw coming. She suggested I dump Lance and marry Kyle instead. She called it a golden opportunity to secure my future, her words. In her mind, marrying Kyle would solve every problem: financial stability, family pride, and of course, the chance to throw an extravagant wedding she could brag about. I was stunned. I mean, I love Lance. The idea of abandoning him just because of a job loss was not only heartless, it was absurd. And marrying my cousin? That was a hard no. But my mom wasn't done. She gave me a 1-month ultimatum: either I'd come to my senses or I'd be kicked out of the house. I was floored. The room I'd called mine for 26 years? Suddenly being handed over to Rita, just like that. My mom said I wouldn't need that much space anymore. It didn't feel like she was just booting me out of the house, it felt like she was kicking me out of the family. To make matters worse, Rita jumped at the chance. She practically skipped into my room the very next day, tape measure in hand, already planning her furniture setup. She didn't even ask if I'd decided anything yet, just assumed I'd roll over and marry Kyle. I tried to talk to my mom again, hoping she'd reconsider, but she doubled down. She said I was throwing away my future, and if I wasn't going to marry for money, she wasn't going to help me anymore. As usual, my dad didn't say much, just nodded quietly in the background, letting her run the show. I confronted Rita about claiming my room before I'd even moved out, and she just shrugged and said, "Well, you'll be gone soon anyway, so what's the big deal?" The smug look on her face cut deep. She's always been the favorite, but this felt like a whole new level of betrayal. After that, I knew I couldn't stay another day in that house. I packed my essentials and decided to move in with Lance, even though we had no idea how we'd make ends meet. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was more than enough for me. When my mom saw me packing, she didn't try to stop me. Just stood there, arms crossed. Rita, on the other hand, was practically glowing with excitement about claiming my space. Leaving my childhood home was painful, but what hurt even more was realizing how little my happiness meant to them. They were so focused on money and image, they couldn't even see that I'd found someone who truly loved me. Lance was incredible through it all. He blamed himself for causing the divide in my family, but I made sure he knew this wasn't on him. My family made their choices. I made mine. And I don't regret it for a second. Update: moving in with Lance was absolutely the right choice, but that doesn't mean it was easy. We were scraping by on his savings and the little I made from work. It was a huge shift, going from planning a dream wedding to just trying to pay rent on time. There were days I questioned everything. Not our relationship, but whether we'd made a mistake taking on so much at once, especially with the constant pressure and judgment from my family hanging over us. Lance was job hunting non-stop, but the market was brutal. Some days he came home looking crushed, and it broke my heart to see him like that. We agreed to scale way back on wedding plans and save until we could afford something small and meaningful, even if it meant saying our vows at the courthouse with just a few close friends. Meanwhile, my mom and Rita were acting like they'd won. My mom kept reminding me every chance she got that I'd thrown away a golden ticket. During our increasingly rare phone calls, she'd find a way to slip in updates about Kyle, how he bought another property or landed some big business deal. It was like she thought she could still talk me into changing my mind. Rita was happily nesting in my old room. She sent me photos of how she redecorated it, clearly just to rub it in. Her voice dripped with smugness whenever she talked about how fabulous life was at home. Surprisingly, my dad reached out more than I expected. He never came out and said anything, but I think he felt guilty about how things played out. A few times, he even gave me money for groceries or rent, quietly, and told me not to tell my mom. I appreciated it, but it also reminded me that he still wasn't willing to stand up to her, or to Rita. And Kyle? He was furious that I'd said no to him. I didn't hear it directly from Kyle, but the message came through loud and clear from my mom and other relatives. He was furious. Apparently, he took my refusal to marry him as a personal insult. He truly believed that us getting married would have been the smartest move for both of us, and choosing Lance, especially now that he was unemployed, felt like a slap in the face to him. My mom didn't help matters at all. If anything, she kept stirring the pot, constantly feeding Kyle the idea that I was ruining my life and disappointing the entire family. It got to a point where Kyle stopped pretending to be neutral. He started sending subtle threats, using relatives as messengers. Word got back to me that he said I'd regret my choice and that I shouldn't expect him to be so forgiving. As time went on, I began hearing more troubling things about Kyle, whispers that his shiny business empire wasn't as clean as he made it out to be. Rumors circulated that he was involved in shady dealings, manipulating contracts, forging documents, and generally scamming his way to wealth. At first, I brushed it off. I figured it was just gossip, maybe some jealousy. But the rumors didn't go away, they got louder and more consistent. Eventually, the truth came out. It became common knowledge among our extended family that Kyle's company was under serious investigation. Lawsuits started piling up from clients who claimed he had defrauded them. The cousin my mom had spent years promoting as my perfect match turned out to be a full-blown con artist. My mom refused to believe it at first. When I brought it up to her, she waved it off like it was nothing, insisting that people were just envious of Kyle's success and were trying to tear him down. But I could hear it in her voice, she didn't sound as confident as she used to. When the scandal fully erupted, it hit my family hard. My mom, who had built her whole fantasy around Kyle's achievements and pushed him onto me like a prize, went silent for the first time in a long time. When it was confirmed that Kyle was facing possible criminal charges, she panicked. Her calls to me became more frequent, but this time the tone had changed. She wasn't bragging anymore, she sounded desperate, trying to keep some connection alive, like she was grasping for control she no longer had. My dad stayed mostly quiet, but his actions spoke louder than his words. I think deep down he always had reservations about Kyle, but never voiced them to keep the peace. Now that Kyle's mask had fallen, my dad quietly stood by me. He helped out financially when he could and offered quiet support. But it was clear he was torn, caught between his loyalty to me and trying not to upset my mom. As for Rita, her world practically crumbled. She had idolized Kyle for so long, basking in the glow of his success, that the truth hit her like a brick. She scrambled to do damage control, trying to protect her carefully curated image. But her influencer dreams started slipping fast. No one wanted to associate with someone tied to a scandal of that size. Then the final blow came. Kyle was officially arrested for fraud. Our whole family was thrown into turmoil. My mom was devastated. Everything she had built up in her mind about Kyle, about our family status, fell apart overnight. Suddenly, she was the one trying to do damage control. She called me, asking if I'd consider coming to family events, trying to smooth things over as if none of this ever happened. I couldn't believe it. After everything, after the ultimatums, the betrayal, the emotional blackmail, she still thought I'd just come back and play along? I told her no. My relationship with them was fractured, maybe permanently, but for the first time, I felt like I was breathing freely. Lance and I were still struggling, yes, but we were building something real, something based on love, not illusion. Update 2. Despite everything going on, Lance and I finally decided it was time. We'd put our wedding on hold long enough. Things weren't perfect, but we realized waiting for the perfect moment might mean never doing it at all. So, we went for it. We planned a small, intimate garden wedding, nothing like the big, flashy event we once imagined, but it felt so much more us. The ceremony was simple, heartfelt, and held in Lance's parents' backyard, which they kindly offered for the day. We kept the guest list tight, a few close friends, supportive folks from Lance's side, and my dad. My mom and Rita didn't show, which I honestly expected. Part of me was relieved. I didn't want their energy tainting a day that meant everything to me. Walking down the aisle, I didn't feel even a hint of regret. No second thoughts. Lance was waiting at the end, looking at me like I was the only person in the universe, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. My dad walked me down the aisle. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was proud. Then, during the reception, he did something that stunned me. He gave a speech. Short and simple, but deeply moving. He said, "I've always believed love should guide us, not wealth, not appearances. I'm proud of Lucy for following her heart." That one line meant more to me than all the status or money in the world. Then came the biggest surprise of the day. Kyle's parents showed up. They had stayed mostly silent during all the family drama, so I had no idea what to expect. But when they approached me, they were kind, respectful, and genuinely remorseful. They apologized for everything Kyle had done, saying they'd had no idea about his fraudulent behavior and were deeply ashamed. They told me they had tried to stay out of my mom's drama but now wanted to make peace. They even brought a wedding gift, a generous check to help us get started. It completely caught us off guard. They said it was their way of apologizing for the chaos and heartache Kyle had caused. Lance and I accepted it with sincere gratitude. For once, a part of the family stepped up in a way that felt honest and healing. After the wedding, we moved into a small apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, and it represented a clean slate. We wanted to start our new life away from all the expectations, drama, and pressure that had been weighing us down for months. A few weeks later, Lance finally landed a new job. It didn't pay as much as his old one, but he was happier and more at peace, and honestly, so was I. We started saving, planning, and dreaming again. Slowly but surely, we were rebuilding. It hasn't been easy. Some days are tough. But I wouldn't trade what we have now for anything. My family may still be clinging to their fantasies of wealth and status, but we've got something they'll never understand: a relationship grounded in love, trust, and mutual respect. And that's priceless. Update 3: It's been a year since we said I do, and looking back, it's hard to believe how far we've come. It feels like a different lifetime, the chaos, the pressure, the pain. Lance and I have been through so much together, and somehow, all those hardships made us stronger. When our one-year anniversary rolled around, he surprised me with a quiet, romantic dinner at this little tucked-away restaurant in town. It wasn't anything flashy or over the top, and that's exactly why I loved it. Just the two of us, sitting across from each other, holding hands and talking about how far we'd come in a year. It felt like something out of a dream. We raised our glasses and toasted to love, to resilience, and to the life we were building. But as perfect as the evening already was, the real surprise came later. When we got back home, Lance sat me down and shared some incredible news. He had just been promoted at work. And not just a small title bump either. It came with a big pay raise and a lot more stability. He'd been working nonstop all year, rebuilding his career from scratch, and seeing it finally pay off made me so proud I could have burst. That promotion wasn't just a win for him, it felt like a turning point for both of us. Proof that all the late nights, the sacrifices, the stress, it had all been worth it. I wish I could say my family stayed away during this chapter of my life, but of course, they didn't. Over the last few months, my mom started reaching out more often. She called, texted, even sent a card on our anniversary, saying she wanted to put the past behind us and move forward. It was a strange shift coming from her, considering everything she'd put me through. Even Rita tried to slide back into my life. Her messages were filled with half-hearted apologies, mostly revolving around how she acted during the whole Kyle mess. She admitted something I never thought I'd hear: she was jealous. Jealous of the attention I got from Lance. Jealous of my independence. Jealous that I had the strength to go against our family's expectations when she couldn't. A part of me wanted to believe they were being sincere. But forgiveness doesn't happen overnight, especially after all the emotional wreckage they left behind. I didn't want to cut them off completely, I'm not wired that way, but I also wasn't about to just open the door and pretend like none of it happened. So I kept things light and distant. Texts here and there. Maybe a short phone call once in a while. But nothing deeper than that. I needed space to heal, and I wasn't going to let them come back in like everything was fine just because they suddenly felt guilty. Then, just when I thought life had settled, I found out I was pregnant. Lance and I had talked about starting a family someday, but we weren't actively trying. So when I took the test and saw those 2 lines, I just stood there in shock. The first person I told, of course, was Lance. I'll never forget his face when I showed him the test, pure joy and disbelief all at once. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. We both laughed, then cried, and then sat on the couch talking about what life would look like as parents. And as if things couldn't get any more emotional, my dad surprised me with something I never saw coming. He'd been pretty quiet throughout all the family drama, always lingering in the background, rarely speaking up. But one afternoon he called and asked if I wanted to meet him for lunch. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I agreed. When we met, he skipped the small talk. He looked me in the eye and said he wanted to help Lance and me with a down payment for a house. Now, my dad has never been one for big emotional gestures. But this? This was huge. He told me he'd been setting money aside for years, and that he hadn't told my mom about it. He said he wanted to use it to help us get our first home, his way of making up for not standing up for me when I needed him the most. That moment hit me hard. I could see how difficult it was for him to say all of that, and it made me realize that, in his own quiet way, he had always been paying attention. Maybe he didn't speak up when it mattered most, but this was his way of trying to make it right. I accepted his offer with a full heart. Not just because of the money, but because I finally saw that he cared. Deeply. Even if he didn't always know how to show it. And that, his quiet support, Lance's unwavering love, the baby we're now expecting, and the life we've built from the ashes of all that chaos is more than I ever hoped for. No amount of money or status could ever compare.